What's up, everybody? Bandit and Chad here with some really exciting news from Toyota.
Right, so Toyota did post a picture on their Instagram account just this previous week, and it was a picture of the TRD Pro lineup. It's not a new picture, it's an old picture from when they did have all 3 trucks in the TRD Pro lineup, and we do have some new information on the lineup. Right,
so if you all haven't seen already, obviously the Tundra got a little bit of a facelift and also added the TRD Sport package here for 2018, and as a result of that, they took away the 2018 TRD Pro Tundra. The rest of the lineup is obviously still around. You still can get a 4Runner or a Tacoma, and new for 2018 they did add the Calvary Blue, but currently you cannot get a TRD Pro Tundra. However, Toyota is saying that they're about to unleash the next batch of trail-ready four-wheelers, and that is actually a quote directly from Toyota. Now, what does this mean, and when will we be seeing it? Well, the newest and most upcoming auto show is Chicago, and that is actually in a few weeks here.
It's very close.
Right, and what does that exactly mean? Well, I think Toyota's going to have to do a little bit of something outside of their comfort zone to stay competitive in the segment. Now, Chevy already has the ZR2 in the Colorado. Ford is about to release the Ranger Raptor, which we'll talk about here in a minute. But currently, the TRD Pro Tacoma, at least, is going to be fighting to even hold its own with those 2 trucks because of some of the choices that Toyota's made. Now, one of those is, of course, the tire selection, which is the same tire that they put on the TRD off-road trucks, same as that I have on my truck, and they are Goodyear, they are an all-terrain tire, and they do have the Kevlar reinforced sidewalls, but ultimately they're not a very aggressive tire, and when the going gets tough, that truck simply cannot hold its own, even with all of its great technology and the lockers, crawl control, multi-terrain select, and everything else, because of the tire selection. So we're guessing that they're definitely going to have to do something a little bit interesting here and make some changes to make it hold its own, because, you know, obviously when they do the press cars and everything like that, Motor Trend, Car and Driver, and everyone else gets all these vehicles and they put them head to head. Well, obviously it doesn't look good when the best-selling mid-sized truck and you know, highest selling, supposed to be the most capable and everything else, can't even hold its own against Chevy and Ford because it doesn't have the right tire selection and everything else. So that's my guess as to what it is. We're kind of in agreement with that, but with the wording here, they're going to release the next batch of trail-ready four-wheelers. That definitely harkens back to you know, bringing back the Tundra back as well. So hopefully we'll see that here in 2019. But hopefully we'll see some updates across the entire lineup with all of these vehicles. Now, one really interesting thing that you may not have realized is these vehicles don't actually have equal treatment all with Toyota. So the 4Runner, the Tundra, and the Tacoma never have had the same tire selection. They don't even have the same suspension, for that matter.
Right, currently they don't. When they went into the second generation, if you will, TRD Pro Tacoma,
which is the 3rd gen Tacoma, but
for the 3rd gen Tacoma, the 2nd gen Tacoma had a very, very short run in the TRD Pro lineup. So they did have Bilsteins there initially, and then once the 3rd gen Tacoma was released, and then for the 2017 model year, when they came back out with the TRD Pro for the Tacoma, they changed the suspension around a bit, and now you get Fox shocks with that.
Correct, and also with those 1st generation TRD Pro Tacomas, you did get the original BFG KO tires, and which is kind of an upgrade from what you have on these. Now,
true.
It really would have made more sense to put the KO2 on here, you know, go with what you've already done. But Toyota seems to have a tire deal with really every manufacturer. I think it's Toyo's, if I'm not mistaken, on the 4Runner.
Perhaps, yeah, I think so.
But, you know, they have different tires across the entire lineup, different wheel sizes and everything else. But I think Toyota's definitely going to have to do something to stay competitive here in this segment.
I just mentioned a few minutes ago, we were talking about the Ford Ranger Raptor, and we believe that that will be coming here soon, maybe even as soon as the Chicago Auto Show here in a couple weeks. But recently, we did see that it is now finally on U.S. soil. There were several pictures of it in different places, but one in particular, it was on the back of a truck, kind of like a flatbed on the back, and it was still in the camo, except on the very front. The grille was not covered any whatsoever, and it did have that Ford Raptor style grille up front, all black, and had the lettering right up there, just kind of big, and had its presence right there in the front. So we did get to see some of those spy shots, and like I said, we'll probably be seeing that sooner rather than later.
Right, and also with the Ranger Raptor, it does have KO2s like its big brother, the Ford F-150 Raptor, and it has the same stretch bodywork, same suspension travel, and everything else. And I'm sure Toyota's seeing this as well. And again, they already know that they can't really compete with the ZR2 because it doesn't have lockers in the front and rear. It doesn't have, I believe they're Duratrax on that truck, correct?
Yes.
But it just can't compete with that. It doesn't have it as aggressive as a tire. It does have a lot of technology, but ultimately where the rubber meets the ground, they're just not there. And ultimately there could be some other upgrades that Toyota is planning on making. The more we see about the rest of these trucks, and the more of these trucks that come out that are really kind of the halo off-road trucks, the better off everyone's going to be. Competition makes better products, and ultimately I'm really excited to see where all of these manufacturers go. But also with other truck news this week, we talked about it a little bit last week, but the Ram 1500 did receive the update. I was actually at the Washington Auto Show over the weekend and was able to get up close and personal with those trucks. And I ultimately really like the redesign and everything else. But one thing we forgot to talk about with the debut is on the clock on the interior. Now, FCA has some really interesting ways to kind of do Easter eggs and teasers with some of their vehicles, but the clock on the interior of the new Ram 1500 was set to 7:07. 7 o'clock or 7 minutes past 7 o'clock rather, and that's an awful interesting number. That is the output of the Hellcat motor, and we've seen some concepts that Ram has loosely called, which is basically a Rebel with a Hellcat motor. This would absolutely sell more than they could produce, I think. The Hellcat is a huge selling point, and the Raptor is a very popular truck, and ultimately the Rebel is not too far off of the Raptor, except for the fact that it doesn't have the same power output. Right. A lot of people were really turned off with the new Raptor because they did go to that twin-turbo EcoBoost V6 instead of keep the big naturally aspirated V8, and if Dodge could put or shoehorn somehow a 707 Hellcat motor in just the standard Ram 1500 or Rebel or anything else, that would kind of slap Ford in the face, and I would love to see it. I think that would just be awesome, and then that would put GM on their heels to try to catch up with all of that.
Like you said, competition in the market is a good thing.
Oh, absolutely, and especially we're seeing more and more of these trucks go with a hybrid assist or e-torque assist, as Ram calls it, or EcoBoost motors or whatever else. But for a lot of old school truck enthusiasts, they just really like to see that big V8 that has tons of power, awesome engine note and everything else, and it looks like we may be seeing it here coming from Ram before too long.
So another vehicle that was seen testing out here on U.S. soil was what we believe to be the future RAV4. So this could be another very close concept, 2019 or 2020 model year. There isn't really many reports about it. Toyota is pretty good at keeping concepts under wraps and hidden away pretty close to the point where they do release it to the public. But when you do look at this, it was very covered in camo and all of that stuff, and it looks a lot more aggressive and muscular. And what we mean by that is very similar to the Toyota FTAC concept that we had talked about a month or so ago. There are pictures on our Instagram page and all over the internet that you can see, but the design looks very much like that. Has some cues that look very Lexus-like, and the grille, which on this particular RAV4, what we believe is a RAV4, look very much like the FTAC grille. So what we're thinking is that it's going to take very many design cues from that concept and some other Toyota Lexus products as well. Again, this may be something that we see as soon as the next auto show in a couple weeks, or maybe even later this year.
Right, and it looks like Toyota in general is really trying to be more interesting. I actually saw a new 2018 Camry going down the road this morning, and it looked really great, with the 4 exhaust tips and everything else, which 10 years ago we would have never ever thought that we would ever see that on a Camry. But Toyota is definitely trying to spruce up their lineup, and a lot of people are really looking for these adventure-rated crossovers and everything else, and if they could make the RAV4 look more like the FTAC, I think it would be a great move on Toyota's part. Now, the final story we have here is Jeep is actually actually working on a smaller Jeep. Now, currently we have the Renegade, and that is actually being refreshed as we speak. That has also been testing out in various places. But it looks like Jeep might be interested in doing a little bit smaller vehicle for their global market and everything else. Now, with FCA, you know, kind of controlling Jeep and everything else, there is a lot of platform sharing, and actually the Fiat Panda has a four-wheel drive variant called the Fiat Panda Cross. Now, the Fiat Panda is not a very exciting vehicle at all, but I'm sure if you slap a couple of Jeep badges on it, it would make some people very, very interested, because they just have to have a Jeep, and Jeep ultimately does have a pretty good nameplate associated with it. So that pretty much wraps up everything we have to talk about for this week. Thank you all very much for watching. Have a fantastic week, everybody. We'll catch you next time.
See you guys.